There's nothing like discovering that you probably lost over $500,000 by not picking the right savings amount, which was probably only $21 a week. I could have easily given up $21 a week to figure out that I could have had over $500,000 more. So that's what happened to me recently. I was running some numbers trying to figure out what if I had changed my savings rate when I first started working at my first career. I don't know about you, but most people don't tell you what your savings rate should be. And you don't look at projections of, by picking a savings rate, what that could turn into and why it's so important. I think that's the bigger thing. You might know that you need to put money aside, but you don't know at all how much you're going to need. Now, there's some rules of thumb that I'll touch on a little bit, but all because of a $21 difference. Again, I probably lost over $500,000. So let me drill into this scenario. And again, I'm going to leave links below, but I'm going to use the Dinkytown calculators. If you've watched any of my other videos, I really like this tool. It's simple, it's easy, it's got some nice visualizations, and you can look at a report which gives you more details around all the information. So I really like this report. So I'm going to start off first with what I experienced myself. So I started my first job at 27,500 many, many years ago. And my company gave a 6% match. Because they gave a 6%, my thought process was, hey, they're giving me a 6%. They give me a match up to 6%. So that's probably all I have to save up to. So I put 6% in, and then I got a match. And I'm going to remove the match right now because I kind of want to show even without a company match. So even if you don't have a 401k, you're saving something on your own, what could 6% of 27.5 turn into? And you can see here, it's a little over 819,000 over 43 years. Great amount to save for. That's well over the mean, not the average, but the mean. And so this would be for the most part, my entire working career. I think I started there when I was 22. I could be a little bit off. Working to 65, and of course, full retirement age today is 67. But I said, well, what if I left early, up to 65, because that's kind of when you can start taking Medicare. So that's a very nice amount, right? But again, what I didn't kind of understand was picking the right savings rate is so important. I didn't even think about when I was first starting my career that you could change it. You could put it at 8 or 9 or 10 or whatever. And I think if you're starting off in those low 20s, you can do a 10% savings rate. So I wish that's what I had done. Now today, I'm a lot higher than that. My wife's even higher. Obviously, we're trying to make up for some of probably by putting it at only 6% for so long when we were first starting our careers, or when I started mine. If I had done 10%, so again, if you're in your low 20s and you can do 10%, that would have been a little over, it's approaching 1.4, it's 1.365 over 43 years, and would it have been a lot of money? Going from 6% to 10%, it sounds like a lot. But, you can actually use this report so you can put in your own numbers. So that's why I like this tool and I like showing it because it's very easy for you to put it in as well. You can actually, if I put it back to the 6%, you can look at the view report and you can actually see how much you would be contributing. So in that first year, you would have been contributing $1,650. And again, if you were doing 10%, if we're going to look at that report, you would have been doing a little over $2,750. So $1,100 more. That's it. So $1,100. It's about $92 a week or a month, and it's about $21 a week. So definitely doable in a lot of ways to miss $21. Maybe that's one night out at a restaurant. Maybe that is you're packing 2 lunches to go to work or something like that. But, very doable. in a lot of ways to switch and just miss $21 a week. I did also want to share what was the numbers if you had gotten a match. So a lot of companies do give matches. I'm going to do back to 6% so you can see this is how much it would have been without a match. And if we had put in a match, I'm going to do my current match, not what my match was at that time, but my current match today is 50% up to 8% of my salary. And you can see here, even at starting 27,500 over 43 years, you'd have a little over $1.2 million saved. And if I had done, again, at a 10% match, it's a little over $1.9 million. Huge difference, in a lot of ways. At a 4% withdrawal rate, you're calculating out almost $80,000 at that point. Now, again, when you're starting off in your career at 22, making 27.5, the reality is you have no idea how much you're going to need. So that's why I do like a visualization from Fidelity. So Fidelity has this savings by age rule, and you can do at different stages of your life, figure out how much you're going to need for retirement. And again, they have, so at 30, you should have 1 times your salary. At 45, you should have 4 times. And here it is. They have it at 67, you should have 10 times. They don't show a 65, but I believe because you're actually retiring earlier, I have seen graphs that 65, you should have 12 times. So I'm just going to point that out. Now, when you're starting off at the same time, you don't know how much, can you project out how much you need, number one, as well as, what would your multiple be? So let me bring up a calculator. And again, I will include this link in the notes as well. So this is a salary increase calculator. So you could figure this out as well. You could put in your annual salary, what your expected increase is. And again, on all my examples that I do about a 3%. I figure that's reasonable. Maybe it's a little high, maybe it's a little low, depending on your industry and what you're working on. And then I do an 8% return on the annual growth rate. So if you think you're going to get better than that, you could put to 9 or 10 or whatever. Or if you want to be more conservative, you could lower that. But coming back to here, you can put in the salary, the estimated percentage of increase, and the number of years. And I did that starting at the 27,500, and you can see after 43 years, it is just under $100,000. So going back to that graph, what would you need? Well, you would need close to $1 million or 1.2 million if you're doing the 12 times. So again, I really want to point this out for you to be able to use these tools yourself. Try to figure out where you should be. And as well, maybe you are halfway through your journey like yourself or like myself at 52, projecting out what you might need and actually using these graphs to put in new numbers to see the projections go out. I think it's really important. So here's kind of, again, going back to what I kind of experienced or what I kind of discovered was, again, with no match. I'm going to use that. So, but I'll point out how much I might have lost it with a match, right? So with no match, at a 6%, again, here's how much I would have saved. At a 10%, it would have been closer to 1.4. Again, that is losing basically $550,000. I think it was 547, but close to $550,000. If I had included the match, again, with a 6% savings rate, I would have had a little over 1.2. And again, at a 10% savings rate, I would have had close to 1.9. The difference here is almost $700,000. Okay, so it's 682,000 and some change. So again, here's kind of looking at the difference from a weekly perspective and a yearly perspective. So this is what the contribution rate or the amount I would have contributed over a whole year by saving at 6%. Here's what it would have been at 10%. It's $1,100 difference. Not that much in a lot of cases. and it's practically $21 a week. I think it's a little bit over that. And here is the loss of savings. So when you're starting your career, or if you've already started, hopefully maybe, if you haven't looked at these things and you're just starting your career, take a look, right? It has a huge difference in the confidence to be able to retire. And, this is one of those things I wish I had known about when I was first starting my career. Now, 30 years in, I can pull and I can make some different levers to be able to try to save a little bit more, or where I can put my money. But at the same time, the time in the market really is limited by the number of years I have left. So I hope you find this interesting. If I'm curious to hear, what did you start off with? Did you start off at 6% or 5% like myself, and then have you raised it over time? Or, did you pick the right amount? You feel like you're saving at the right amount. And at the same time, again, I'm going to include these links in the description. Have you used them? Have you tried them out? Like, if you already have, again, I say I have zero saved, but let's say you have, let me put let's say you have $50,000 saved today, and you do get the same match. Maybe you're not 22, but maybe you're actually 35, and maybe your salary, I'm going to put it at 35,000, right? So this is what you could save after 30 more years of working. So use the tool, and maybe this will give you confidence to be able to say, wait a minute, okay, I'm doing 10% with this salary. How much would it be that I'm going to put in per year? And here it is. It's $1,400. So again, if you find this type of content, interesting, like and subscribe. I'm trying to do these things for more educational perspectives. I'm not a financial advisor, but through my life journey, these are some of the things I'm trying to teach, is things I wish I had done and started out sooner. Thank you.